First off, I would like to know what you would consider yourselves musically.
The only thing that we call ourselves is like a rock band or like a band.
Yeah, we don't really tag the genre or anything, more so just the means of making it. We're a rock band, so we have guitar, vocalist, usually drums and bass.
Yeah, like we're more concerned about how the music's made. I think there's basically like three ways you can make music. It's either one as like a band where they are adept at certain instruments or means of making music and beat off each other with riffs and jamming and stuff. And it's a more like live experience because, you're like practicing them back and forth and like jamming is a live thing. I also think the other one is like an MC thing, which is more modern, where like you basically have one person that supplies the musical aspect, and then there's the MC and ethos of the project, but they're not particularly musically talented. Or not talented, but like they're very limited, I guess. I'm not being derogatory of that setup at all. I'm just like, and then the third one is like an auteur, which is really like predating shit forever ago with composers where like it's completely out of your head. Now like the new auteur these days is like electronic people, where you just have your computer and so I think we're just the first, and that's just kind of the only way we classify it. I mean, we listen to all kinds of music and we talk about sound in all kinds of ways. That's really the only thing that we are concerned with.
I type in things like Stabscotch live, and the only thing I've found is a video of Tyler as Zack.
Oh, yeah.
And you're playing a song from Uncanny Valley, but that is the only live performance I've seen of you, footage. Do you guys perform live often, or is this a rarity?
We haven't in a really long time.
Yeah.
Probably since around the time we started recording Uncanny Valley.
Yeah, like 2015, I think, was our last show. We used to a lot. So, like, because we started Stabscotch in college, and one of our friends, James, we were all living in the same area and house and shit, and so we were able to do shows easier and stuff. And
there was a point where we probably focused on shows a little bit, like between Eldritch and Ziggurat, but then like we pretty much just stopped it once we started recording Uncanny Valley for the sake of producing it and everything.
Like we really want to play shows. Like we've talked about it a lot, but since basically the release of Uncanny Valley, there's just been like multiple like migrations of like where we've all lived, shit like that. And
basically, like we said, we started in college, so we all graduated, got jobs, moved elsewhere and everything.
Like we continued it excessively, but just writing and shit, and we still are excessively, probably even more than we did before. But because now Hubbard and I live together, so we're able to kind of accelerate that more. But we're trying to we really talked about it a lot. We just moved in together recently, and we really do want to do live shit, but it just takes a lot of resources and time to get that organized because we would just need at least like 5 people to do it with just like how we want to make it sound.
So it is just like a matter of time. Until we expect a tour anytime soon, you'd have to recruit like a few more people and get the resources in place.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's also a time thing.
Yeah, an actual tour is kind of hard. Like we both work full time. It could more so be like we would maybe do like a trip like every few weekends or so and do a show somewhere or something like that. Seems like the most feasible.
Yeah, it's we'll see.
Yeah, we haven't set anything in stone basically.
Okay. How is the music scene at Crown Point and Bloomington?
That's a funny question.
All right, well, first of all, so Hubbard and I are from Crown Point. We grew up there. We never lived there again. I've seen things on the internet of people, but we do not live in Crown Point. We don't know shit about the music there. It's just a place.
Yeah, I mean, like when we were there in like high school and stuff, it was like, we were talking about this the other day, like either like pop punk or like deathcore kind of stuff. And those are basically like your two groups, more or less.
That was a while ago. That was like 10 years ago. So,
yeah.
Also don't live in anymore and haven't for a while. We only went there for college. It's okay. We never really got into like a scene. Like we played some shows because of some guys that we knew that had venues, but I don't think there was anything like that really stuck out to us.
I mean, the most like cohesive thing that was there, I think, was like emo, indie rock, kind of garage rock kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And those are kind of people we played with sometimes. But yeah,
we didn't really think it was that good.
Yeah.
Like we just played because they gave us shows. Like, okay. I mean, not to say that like whatever you genre call them is like what killed it. They just don't think about music the same way we do. And so we just played some shows for the fuck of it, but we don't feel any connection with the Bloomington scene. What we do feel for sure a connection with is We're based in Pittsburgh now, so Pittsburgh is fucking a really great place for everything, but especially music. We've really found like a pretty staple like weirdo experimental like shit, kind of just good shit. Like a lot of really good shit around here.
Not even so much band stuff, like a lot of like audio visual kind of stuff, like just general computer music.
It's really forward shit.
Yeah, a lot of cool stuff like that.
Yeah, I was wondering if you guys were involved in a cinematic scene of some sort, because the music videos for Unknown Pleasures and Alligator Drones seem pretty experimental for first videos.
We made that shit in college.
James was always kind of the videographer. Like, that's kind of what he does now for work, too. He's just, like, does a lot of, like, video, audio editing kind of stuff.
I mean, we gave him the ideas. And then, you know, he has a skill set to put it together, but...
Yeah, so it was, like, all very kind of synergistic process. But...
Yeah. Actually, the Unknown Pleasures one, I actually recorded that. I was living somewhere else, and I recorded that in my apartment, and I gave it all to James to edit. But... yeah, we'd like to do videos too, but it's really just a matter of how much time we have. It's been a really shitty process, because since Uncanny Valley came out, or just not even since it came out, but since we were really invested in the writing process and got really deeply serious about the music of it, we have like a trillion fucking ideas of what we want to do with the band. It's just been hard with living situations and, like, again, we have jobs and just shit like that. If we had, like, no jobs and stuff and fucking that's all we could do, I mean, we would... God knows the kind of shit we would have by now. Like, it's pretty overwhelming, actually.
I mean, I believe you. I was completely taken off guard by how droney and experimental The Witness is.
Oh, yeah.
I do believe you that you guys pretty much have no boundaries at this point about where you can take the band's sound.
Well, it's funny you mentioned The Witness, because the way we made that is we had these things called, like, nature sets, where it was, like, a very different setup from, like, us playing guitar and bass, and, like, they're pretty easy for us to do, because they're improv, and we've actually, like, thought about doing live shows of those with other people that are, like, within our orbit of being in Stabscotch. So we actually might do shows like that, but I don't know. I mean, that was a while ago we did that, and the shit that we're working on right now and, like, that we want to do in the future, it could reflect that setup, but it's...
I think it's like kind of like trying to get like the same energy from it with more like instrumental means would be like where would we do the next
I just feel like the setup that we have, like,
well, before it was like 2 synths, like a drum pad, like a looper, and like a lot of like tape stuff. But now it's more so like we try to do it with like instruments and making them more washy and like sort of synth-like in a way.
I'm saying that, like, what if we did a nature set with like the white magic appeal? That's what I've always thought about. Like, I don't know how that would happen, but yeah.
You call them, so they're nature sets? Are they just like that? I'm assuming you guys set up like pre-recorded things and then improvise over them.
I have a looper pedal that I would guide with it, yeah. So we have like a lot of loops of like shit from songs, and yeah, that's kind of like how they would be guided, but they were like just these really like subconscious, like
kind of like hypnagogic guitar and vocal loop kind of stuff.
Yeah, like we would finish those and we would just be like, what the fuck happened, compared to like focusing on an instrument, you know, like and trying to make it perfect. And so it was that's just some like dumb term we call them as nature sets, but it's something that happened when we were recording Uncanny Valley, because that whole like period of recording it was pretty, like, I don't know, it was interesting.
You recorded those 2 albums within the same range of time?
Actually. No, because we recorded, because we actually originally tried to release The Witness, like, before Uncanny Valley, I think. Yeah. Or, like, right after it or some shit. We were trying to release it, like, way quicker. Because we recorded those scenes while recording Uncanny Valley. Yeah, we would, like, jam it and record it, and then we, like, picked ones that we liked, and then that was The Witness. But it came out, like, a year later. I mean, the shit we're working on right now, we've been writing it since, like, March of 2017. It's taken us so goddamn long because of, like, distance and time and getting other heads in to help us with it, so it's very past due, but there's nothing we can do about it. We're inching it along.
When did you guys start recording for Uncanny Valley, and when did you guys stop?
It's kind of a long process.
That was probably like November 2015 till like July 2016.
Well, what was the first thing we recorded for it?
Alligator was in like, I mean, if you don't count Alligator, we did that in like
I don't know if it counts. Like, it was a just very gradual process over the course of, like, the end of 2015 to, like, we maybe finished actually recording, like, a year later, then mixing and mastering. I think it came out in January of 2017.
You said that The Witness had like loops and stuff in it. That actually makes perfect sense that it was recorded at the same time as Uncanny Valley, because I noticed that sounds from Radio Spiricom is in The Witness.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I think we use like the beginning of Unknown Pleasures. There's a loop somewhere in there. Yeah, just stuff like that. There's little relics of Uncanny Valley scattered in it.
Yeah, I mean, it's that, and there's relics of that in the future shit, too. It's like, it's just kind of like a slur of everything that we have and will done, which is why we kind of liked it. It was like tapping into this non-temporal, subconscious, like, essence of Stabscotch.
I was really curious to ask, since I knew that The Witness was distributed in that coffin with the flash drive, was that in part related to the Flaming Lips 7 Skies H3?
I don't even know what that is. I have no idea what that is.
That was basically when the Flaming Lips recorded a 24-hour ambient album, and they only made 3 physical copies of it, and it was a skull, like a human skull with a flash drive inside of it.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah.
I heard about that like 24-hour thing. I didn't know that's how they released it though.
So, since we've touched around the subject so much, I would really like to know, how did the band start, aside from just everyone being in college? What motivated everyone to get together?
Well, me, James, and Hubbard were all buddies. Like, we were all tight. I think we were originally just, like, jamming to, like, hardcore punk music that we liked, just to play for fun.
Basically do, like, Ceremony and like, trash talk covers, more or less, just for fun.
Like, Ceremony, like, we did some, like, Death Grip songs, too, that were dumb. Then we, like, then we were like, oh, well, we'll be a band, and then we made Eldritch, and, like, that was the first thing, and then it just kind of, like, accelerated into, like, the seriousness of, like, what we could do and stuff, and, like, what it, like, meant to us, and how it just kind of, like, you know, kind of infected us. Because, like, particularly me and Hubbard, the way we think about the music is that it's this kind of compass to where we reflect our own understandings of reality. We're just generally curious people about lots of things and experiencing things. And, like, we kind of have this science to, like, the way the music makes sense. And what the fuck was that? I don't know, it's been a squirrel. But like how like the, you know, everything like makes sense and how it reflects like these more like invisible like force things. So that's like when Uncanny Valley really became a thing. I think like Ziggurat is when we kind of caught on to it, and like really I think like it became musically like interesting because when we started, Hubbard hadn't played guitar in a long ass time, and that's why we were just playing these like fucking power chord shreddy shit. And then Hubbard started like developing his like really significant way he plays guitar, and I think that actually like activated my ideas a lot and kind of like guiding like the way it'll sound, and like things started getting like serious. So I mean, we started making Eldritch and being a band just like normal people, but it just kind of got a lot more like serious, like in like a little slope.
When were the sessions for Eldritch? I know it came out in 2014.
Sometime around 2013. I don't really know like specific months or anything, but it was again just kind of a flowing process.
Yeah.
And so it was all recorded in 2013?
Yeah, it recorded like piss. I mean, that shit was recorded so bad.
It was
just straight DI plugged into like an interface or something. In DAW, like amp heads for guitar tones and stuff. And
I mean, to be fair, like we didn't. Even Uncanny Valley now, like, is kind of, I don't want to say it's piss. It serves the way the music sounds, and I'm not going to, like, regret it, but, like, that's also been another part of us with time consumption and stuff, because everything has been focused between me and Hubbard, really, for the past 2 years, and, like, I've kind of had to, like, endow myself as a producer. We've just been teaching ourselves, like, excessively how to, like, record and produce and master and shit, because we do all that shit ourselves, and, like, that's been a really big process that's making our sound stuff much better incrementally, but also, like, it informs the process as well. So, like, when we record things, since I've been the producer, I can, like, imagine a way that I can fuck with it in, like, post-production to make it sound really interesting and shit. So that's been another, like, huge part that people will see on the next release, for sure, because it's going to sound fucking a million miles ahead of the production that we've done before, but, yeah.
How long has everyone been a musician? I mean, you say that you've only, like, taken it upon yourself to be the producer, so I'm assuming that for as long as Stabscotch has been recording, you've been a producer. Is that...
No. James was originally our producer.
Okay.
He produced Eldritch, Ziggurat, and some of Uncanny Valley. But since Uncanny Valley, basically, I've been producing. I didn't know shit about it until then. I just kind of taught myself everything, and I still do. And it's like a really long process. But Hubbard and I have played guitars since like middle school or whatever.
Yeah, I think I was like 11 when I got my guitar or something.
You guys mentioned that you guys would play Joy Division or just the simple power chord covers, which makes it all the more impressive how Hubbard has developed these really ethereal tones that pop up out of nowhere in your songs. Is Hubbard also influenced by more ethereal bands that are like more ambient or maybe krautrock of some sort?
I mean, I do like a lot of stuff like that. It's nothing that I like heavily listen to. Like, even at the time when I was kind of making stuff like that, I still really just listened to a ton of metal, which I don't really anymore. I mean, like, when I think of, like, stuff that was ethereal that I heard that it kind of, like, resonated with me, like, Dead Can Dance, I guess, was, like, one. But they were never, like, in, like, Idol or anything like that.
Well, I noticed on the back of Uncanny Valley you guys credit Coil.
Oh yeah, I mean Coil is like everything to us for sure. That's actually like probably the most, I mean that's one of the most significant groups for me, period. I think Hubbard usually agrees with that too. And then especially when it comes to like how we started to perceive music and the process of making music and what sound does to us and like how we kind of relate what we make and do with music to really serious ideas and stuff. I mean Coil's like fucking everything by far.
From your sound, I'd guess there'd be influences like Oxbow or the Red Crayola, the pop group. Are these names accurate?
I've never listened to any of that.
Yeah, I've never heard any of them at all.
I actually know who Oxbow is. You ever listen to Oxbow?
No, I haven't heard it.
I remember seeing them once. I think I listened to that shit like once in high school and I didn't like it or something like that. It was...
That doesn't mean anything now, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess, like, the one thing that I can say is not so much, like, artists, but I think tonally, like, a big turning point was when, like, I had a bunch of pedals and we just kind of started messing with them. Like, not with the intent of, like, sounding like anything, but just, like, experimenting with what we could do with pedals. I started adding more. I was just making kind of a lot of riffs, just, like, sitting around playing with that stuff, recording a riff, and, like, we would take that riff and kind of transmute it into, like, something different, but yeah, we never had like the idea of like we're trying to sound like this band or anything.
Yeah.
What does your pedal board look like?
Well, at the time, I think the main things I used were like
A delay,
like reverb, a flanger, and like a Digitech whammy pedal. Which to me, that's like my favorite pedal is that Digitech.
And what do you do to pitch shift it, or is that just a wah?
Sometimes I used wahs, mostly the Digitech, yeah, because it's got like octaves on it and like just a pitch shift, like you said.
Back to like influences, what would be some names that would surprise me that are not easily visible in your music, other than just coil and metal and hardcore music? What else do you guys listen to?
I don't know. I mean, a shit ton of stuff.
I mean, I feel like we both been getting a lot more into like crazy like free jazz and noise jazz and shit like that recently.
Not even just noise jazz and I mean, just, I don't know, anything. Honestly, for me, I haven't really listened to that much abrasive stuff in the past year and a half. Best name drop, fucking Prefab Sprout. There's a name drop. Fucking Prefab Sprout. That shit's incredible. I mean, that's like stuff I listen to in excess. I don't know. I mean, all kinds of things, really. That's the only name I'll drop. Prefab Sprout. There we go.
A friend of mine wanted to ask what you guys are listening to right now, so I'll tell him Prefab Sprout.
Well, I've been listening to Prefab Sprout for a while. What am I listening to now? Fuck, what am I listening to now?
I still listen to Zoo a lot by Denzel Curry.
Oh, yeah? That's good. I haven't... No, okay.
There's like 3 or 4 songs in there.
How have you not been listening? Have you listened to that Space Ghost Perp?
No, not much.
That shit is
I did hear it a couple
amazing.
times, but not
so fucking good. That's like one of the best things I've listened to. I listen to that like almost every day, probably. That shit's fucked up. It's so good.
I've also been listening to a lot of like stuff like Chick Corea or like Magma.
Oh yeah.
What'd you say was the Space Ghost?
Yeah, Space Ghost Perp. I don't know if it's like a pirated mix, or not a pirated, but like a fan mixtape or not.
Oh,
but there's one, I think it's called Miami Carol City Legend. I don't know if it's like a compilation or what, but it's like 30 songs and like he's like pitched up and accelerated some or remixed. I don't know. It's fucking insane. It's like one of the most insane things I've heard in a long time.
I guess this is a pretty general question that you guys might have already had before, but why the name Stabscotch?
I think we just came up with something random, honestly. Like, we just needed something good. We weren't really, like, that serious about what we wanted. We just needed a name. We, like, couldn't decide on a name, and I think we just found the word, and then...
Yeah, there's not really any, like, deeper meaning to it. It just kind of happened.
I think that's the same story with anthrax. I just opened a dictionary and was like, that sounds cool.
Yeah, I mean, I guess with anything, you can, like, piece together some kind of meaning or whatever to it, but, you know.
I did, so this is sobering for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way things work, though. You just kind of...
Wing it?
Yeah.
I mean, like, in retrospect, like, I can apply some kind of meaning to it, but it's not, like, anything that, like...
Yeah, we didn't have, like, a...
Yeah.
I like that there are some, like, unintended or accidental meanings to certain things. For one thing, you know, since Stabscotch is the same name for, like, five-finger fillet, you know, that knife game where you stab around your finger?
Yeah.
I was always thinking that, like, oh, so they're a band that takes risks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I mean, I think that the, like, I guess, like, the sensation of you doing that, of, like...
Just, like, the thrill of it, kind of.
Yeah, like, the sensation, you know, like, it's like before you hit it, and, like, there's that thing in the back of your brain, like, your brain feels warm in the back, it's kind of like, brain shuts off. I think that's an interesting idea.
Yeah, that's good.
So,
I want to ask about the future distribution of some of your work. Are you guys ever going to put Eldritch on Spotify?
Oh, yeah, I didn't even... Uncanny Valley. The only reason Uncanny Valley is on there is because Visual Disturbances that we came out with, like, has a contract to where anything they put out gets put up on streaming services. We probably could. There actually might be a way where... So we're doing a lot with Mr. Snow Productions and, like, getting our shit out and just, like, our solo stuff with them, too. And so it's not a bad idea where we actually might put that on there. We, like, don't even think about Eldritch or Ziggurat a lot, but I guess we could. They're putting out our new thing next, and we might ask them in conjunction, because I don't think it'll cost them much to, in conjunction, just put that up, so.
The Witness isn't on it either.
Well, we're not putting that on there.
Yeah, that was just
okay.
Only those 20 coffins. Like, we knew somebody was going to get it and put it on the internet and whatever, but that's the only release we wanted to do for that.
Yeah.
So, now onto the meat of this thing, Uncanny Valley. Is this ever going to see a CD or vinyl release?
No.
Never?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, we're kind of worried about doing next stuff. We hadn't really talked about going back.
Maybe if we have a shit ton of time and money, sure, but that is, like, just not... That's, like, the last priority we have, and, like... I mean, because we don't personally care for physical... I mean, we are definitely going to be doing physical... Like, the next thing is going to be a physical thing, but we're trying to make every physical thing we do since The Witness to be, like, something significant. I don't think we're really interested in just, like, putting out a CD or vinyl for audiophiles. We could make money off of it and people might do it, but I don't know. I mean, again, maybe if we had more time in the future, but it's pretty complicated the way we're trying to, like, sketch together. And so we'd like to be considerate that everything we do has some kind of investment in that more so than just like, oh, that's what they want, you know, so.
Was it your guys' choice to put it on cassette, or was that just Visual Disturbances?
Oh, I forgot we technically have those. Yeah, that was from VD. You know, I'm pretty close with one of the people that runs it, and she wanted to... They do that with all their good stuff. I'm glad we did that, though. I mean, I thought that was cool. You know, I feel like the cassette format fits, like, the production of it, like, the way it's fucking over-compressed as shit sounding and all that, so I have no regrets on that. Plus, we didn't do shit, so whatever.
What are the letters in the track that ends with Wara, track 8? What language is that?
It's just a mix of Cyrillic and English. It's not a language. It's just a mix of English and Cyrillic letters.
Do you guys just refer to it as Wara?
We usually say Tuki, actually. That's usually how we call it.
Yeah.
I listen to it, and I'm always struck by, like, the distinctly different vocals from that track as opposed to how you normally sing your vocals, where it's a lot more just grunty. It's a lot more distinctly metal. Is that still you?
Yeah, I purposely made it sound more guttural like that, yeah.
Are you planning to sing like that more often, or is that just like that song?
I just do whatever I think sounds right. I mean, I'm not going to say that I'm never going to do it again. I mean, right at this time, right now, I can guarantee you that I'm not doing it, like, on the next thing.
Okay.
Or am I? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I do all kinds of things. I I just know what it needs, and I just figure it out. That's with anything we ever do, really, which is unfortunate because we have pretty ridiculous ideas with all these weird instruments that we can't play, and so it takes a lot out of us to find people that can help us, or we have to figure it out. And especially on this next thing that we're doing, we really got to do a lot of work finding talented people to like get kind of what we want out of it.
I mean, that does relate to my next question, which is who plays the flutes on the Rainforest track?
Oh, that was fun. That was sick.
That's both of us.
Yeah, that was me and Hubbard on the flutes, actually. Yeah.
Are they violins or violas on iMaster?
Violin.
Right? Yeah.
Violins, and was that you two as well?
That was just Tyler.
Oh, it was just Tyler? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you guys are probably implementing similar instruments, but you're looking for professionals now, I guess?
Yeah, like if we can't do something that we want out of an instrument, we got to find, like if we're not technically skilled enough to do it, then yeah.
What inspired the CD damage, the glitch sounds on tracks like Hide Me?
Like I said, it just needed it. I just knew that that's the way it would go. At the end of the day, I'm putting that song in it because that's where it belongs in the energies of that song or whatever it's articulating. Like I might be enticed about the idea that like it's something I've never done before, but like I'm not consciously thinking of like how it's related to what other people have done or like that's really like our process for making stuff in general.
Just waiting to figure out what works for the song and that's it?
It usually starts with like a more abstract idea, and then from there we'll go to like riffs that kind of like fit into that scheme of generally that idea.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like 70 or 80% of the songs that we write, we like discuss like how the song feels and like what the energy of that sounds like in depth for a pretty long time before we even write it. Like that's the way it's been with the stuff we've been working on recently, especially because it takes so long. Then we just kind of use our musical skills and curiosity to just fit the sounds into it by our own tools to then make it like alive. We like to envision that like the things that we make as Stabscotch are like, they're basically real in some kind of part of reality, and we're just like articulating it like with our tools and skills.
It sounds like the writing process is very communal. You guys discuss and elaborate your own ideas as to what makes this song project better.
Oh yeah, Hubbard and I like just talk about that shit like all the time. I mean, like we're just always talking about like the music, our ideas of sound, or the ideas of how they're related to like meta reality or whatever you want to call it. Like we're talking about that stuff all the time.
Do you guys work together on the lyrics as well, or is that just Tyler?
That's me.
Yeah, completely him.
Is the way that you write things founded in another style of, like, are you into poetry, or do you just want to shout exactly what you feel like texturally sounds good with the music?
It's actually a decent question. I actually kind of like think about that a lot because sometimes like the things that I want to say actually don't align with it musically, like with the syllabacy or the vowels and stuff. And I have to work around that a lot. Where like sometimes I'll have like the perfect line or like it doesn't fit within the bars. That in itself has sometimes limited me. It's definitely like a lot of work that I have to put into like making sure that what I'm trying to say like reflects the way it feels musically. And the lyrics, or I should say words, is basically like the chords and rhythm of the vocals as an instrument. So you have to be very conscious that like the vowel feels right on that note and shit like that. I actually think about that a lot.
Right, I mean, because there's songs where it's very wordy and there's just a lot to say, but then there are tracks where it's just a repeated mantra almost, or there are tracks with no vocals at all. I assume that it's the same way where it's just you add them when you feel like it's necessary.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, in the context of Uncanny Valley, like a lot of the, like you doing vocals and stuff kind of came after the instruments.
Yeah, I pretty much always do that once all the instruments are made. But I also, when we write songs, sometimes, a lot of the time actually, I have the vocal idea or like the lyric in, like it's a part of the music before any of the music gets written. That actually happens quite a lot. Like Tannic actually, the only way we started writing that is because I knew that part where I say, because I'm Tannic or whatever. I remember that and then like we just built everything around that and like I knew the way it would have sounded with the feel and the vibe and the progression. That was built around that. I remember Hands Undressed was built around the idea of that outro with me saying that with my hands undressed.
Mm-hmm.
That happens actually quite a lot where like I'll have some kind of lyrical line in my head before anything gets articulated musically at all, actually.
I noticed that some of the vocal deliveries, and, of course this is coupled with the grooves that you guys make instrumentally, it almost sounds like a form of rap metal, almost at times, like especially along Alligator Drones. And then there's even a section in Hands Undressed where it's like rap rock. Is that come out intentionally, or is that just an accident?
I mean, I will say about rap and hip-hop in general, if I want to get into the semantics of the music, what rap and hip-hop, I think, novelized on is using the voice as, like, a rhythmic and highly, like, syllabic instrument where it's very rhythmic and pulsing, and it's like mouth play. And any time that people do that kind of thing with their vocals, people immediately associate with that, which I don't find derogatory specifically. I think some people do, obviously, on the internet. But, like, I mean, that's really where people's, like, associations with that come from, in my opinion. It has nothing to do with, like, the origins of rap. In no way or form am I thinking of, like, NWA or some kind of, like, rap or hip-hop group whenever I do vocals, but, like, have I listened to a shit ton of rap and hip-hop? Like, yeah, I mean, of course. But that's where I think that association comes from, is, like, using the voice in that kind of way as a tool, which I think is pretty great.
Yeah, I agree, because it doesn't sound forced.
That's how you know that I'm not thinking that I'm rapping or anything like that. That's really the best shit out there, is that when people aren't consciously thinking of, oh, I'm gonna do what my favorite X band did, or like that, like people that make that kind of shit, they just suck. Their shit is stupid, and like nobody makes good music, so.
Okay, so it sounds like Stabscotch is really founded on spontaneity.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely improv stuff a lot, but
it all just kind of comes together. We don't really have like one process for doing anything. Like, I think him saying like tools is kind of a good example, because we do just kind of like at this point have just like a toolbox of stuff to just like go to like write, whether it's old riffs or like ideas that Tyler has and like how something should sound, or like synth stuff now, vocal stuff. There's no really beginning or end. It's just kind of flowing.
I think the only thing that we're consistent about doing is just constantly like exploring like every terrain of ourselves, or like possible part of the band as we can. With Uncanny Valley and shit, like, a lot of the ways it was made, and the way it feels and sounds and stuff, like, if we were very uninspired and normal musicians, quote unquote, that sounds derogatory, but like, we could make more of that kind of shit. We're constantly trying to like really kind of like get uncomfortable with what we want to do. Because if Stabscotch is the ultimate, then it has to reflect every facet of what's possible. Like, even if it's something that we don't associate with what we've done in the past and stuff. So like the stuff we're doing right now, for instance, like we were just recording the drums for the second EP that we're putting out next, and that shit is some stuff we've never done. And it's like,
yeah, it's gonna sound completely different.
Yeah, and when we were first like theorizing it and talking about it, it was pretty uncomfortable trying to like do it at first. Like we were using new tunings and like doing some timbres and kind of songwriting that like we haven't really done before. But now that it's like coming together, it's fucking insane. That's how we know anything we're going to make is good, because we're just constantly challenging ourselves and like burrowing deeper into like the Stab universe of like what's possible, basically.
Yeah, and I feel like not having a specific process is conducive to that too.
Yeah.
As far as experimental adventures go, the solo stuff like Silent Gallery or Dzega, were those made as a result of the separation of the band, or were there collaborations that other people wanted to do on their own separate from the band?
I mean, kind of both.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, like, we graduated, and then Tyler went to New York, I went to Chicago, James was still where we went to college and everything. So, like, that geographical hurdle was a big part of it. Like, we all still wanted to make stuff, but I think it would have happened, like, either way.
Yeah.
Like, we do just both have a lot of ideas that exist, like, outside of the idea of Stabscotch, too.
Right.
So they're both, like, a component of that.
I think that, yeah, and we talk about it a lot, but, like, while we were making Uncanny Valley and the certain things that happened during then, like our lives just, like, exploded creatively after that. Like, our brains and, like, all the ideas that I think we have and our dedication to, like, doing this shit. And, yeah, because of us being separated, for sure, because we could only do so much with Stabscotch away, and we had a lot of other time to ourselves, and our ideas just kind of crawled into other facets. And at this point, we spent about an equal amount of time on everything, I think. Like,
yeah,
we're trying to get this Stab shit done, like, ASAP, because it's way overdue, but we're still excessively working on our other stuff. And there's a lot of other stuff going on. A fucking lot, actually. Yeah. So.
Well, when are we going to be able to see these new releases, do you think?
We don't have like a set date or anything, but
I would
it's
probably say like March.
Well, that's I'm excited.
Yeah, you fucking should be.
Is it gonna be as jarring as the shift from you guys' other stuff into tracks like Radio Spiricom?
I think there's some stuff on there that could be considered kind of jarring, but I don't think in the way.
Definitely.
I mean, yeah, but not probably in the way that you mean with like relation to like Spiricom
Yeah.
versus everything else.
Because Spiricom like is a different setup and stuff. Because these are only 4 songs each, we're not going to be doing some totally like
Yeah, like it's not another like hour and a half of music again.
yeah, like they're these songs are concise and they do what they're doing. The sprawl is definitely there, that's for sure. But like I think like certain quote unquote outliers of Uncanny Valley are like Radio Spiricom, Cerulean Mirror, or like the Spires, like that stuff. Like the songwriting was much more divergent, which we don't really have room for that on these next couple EPs. After these EPs are done, we already know what we're doing after this. We've known what we wanted to do after this double EP since 2016 as well. The lifeline of the things we want to do is absurd. Within the first 30 seconds of the new shit, yeah, you'll know.
How often did it take for you to record like your shrieky vocals on Uncanny Valley, and was it hard on your voice?
Yeah, definitely. I've gotten a lot better at it now because I know how to use my diaphragm and stuff, but before I wasn't as versed. But I mean, the more we recorded, the better I knew how to do it. You just kind of have to warm up and be consistent, but not too bad. I mean, I have a voice now. I'm not croaking all the time, so, pretty good.
Are you guys satisfied with I mean, you mentioned something derogatory about the production, but are you guys satisfied with the release and the product of Uncanny Valley?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I only bitch about the production a little bit just because I know how much more I know about production and shit now that I felt like what I did at the time would, in terms of the methods, I just did a lot of things that were unnecessary. That's just on a skill level. In terms of like the way it sounds and is delivered and what it feels, I mean, it is what it is. We have no regrets at all.
One of the things that frustrates me about bands like yours is that I think it's a little unfair how people may react to it. Like they'll hear the abrasive stuff and they'll just like, okay, this is nonsense, and then they'll just put it off. And like, I try to stress that once the physical shock washes away, you can see how quirky and coherent and valid and ultimately functional every song that you guys have made is. And so explain what makes your music valid, even if it's not for everyone. If you could say anything to someone who was all like, man, I'm just trying to get into it, but it's just like creature control scares me.
Nothing. I mean, you can't convince anybody, like the way that I think about art, not just art, but just anything in general, and being receptive to ideas and experiences in general. It's like, let's say we're machines and like the things that you experience is signal, and it's like you can only listen to like a certain frequency, or you can only be receptive to that. Like, let's say you're like a radio tower, okay? And like, let's say Stabscotch is like radio towers. Like, you can hear that and you can vibe with that and you get something from that. But other people, like, they just don't have the perspective, or in this case, the nuts and bolts to like receive that, understand it. Like, to them, it's just passing right through them, like, and that's nothing on them. You can't really, I mean, you might be able to say something in a certain frame of light to certain specific people. Like, people are ridiculously complicated in that way. I'm not saying it's impossible for somebody that doesn't like it first to like it, but it's not really important for us either. I mean, like, we know what people like it, and even if we didn't know people liked it, like, all we know is that it's the most powerful thing that we've ever done with our lives. And like, as long as it's that, then I mean, don't get me wrong, like, we really do appreciate and love that people love it. Like, it really does mean a lot to us, and it definitely enforces us a lot to put the work into it, just in terms of like, if we get tired, just in a very like shallow way, because it is like a lot of time we put in this shit, like a fucking lot of time. But like, at the end of the day, like, people, they can like it or it's not really.
Yeah, I mean, I guess as far as us, the validity always was more internal than anything. We basically had no expectations for when we dropped it, so we weren't like seeking any sort of thing from that. We just believed in it and did it.
I just don't think there's any way you can tell people like, oh, this is like, if anything, they should know that it's definitely a lot of fucking work and there's a lot put into it. I guess I could say that. You know, I think it's funny hearing some bands that like, whether they make good shit or not, you know, some people, again, maybe it's incredible or it's shit, they'll make stuff just like as a dumb joke or, you know, it's just random off the fluke shit. But for us, it's a lot of work, and it's something that like we really basically put every single thing we can into. So
yeah, especially having like full control of it from inception to writing to mixing, production, everything. Basically, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I bet. I mean, how long did it take to master Hands Undressed by itself? Like with all the sudden abrupt changes.
That was a bitch of a song. I don't even remember, but yeah, that was pretty difficult. I remember at the time. Again, I had some really stupid ass mixing techniques that I was trying to do, and when you had that many different instruments with different timbres, I had to separate. Yeah, it was obnoxious. I remember.
I think people will at least register that you guys are a band that is at the very least trying something new.
I don't think anything in terms of the way things feel or the purpose of things is particularly new. I think the tools are new, and I think the variation of people getting together with certain tools is new. But I think everything still roots from the source of the soul of experiencing things. Like, I don't know, I think that's another way that we're able to just kind of how things make sense to us with piecing things together.
You say that you have a feeling, and that's kind of like a vision, and the pursuit of the vision is still the same.
Yeah.
How did you guys make the cover, though?
Oh, that was sick, actually.
Yeah.
That was cool.
It was all physical.
Yeah, so...
Didn't you harvest like a bunch of mushrooms?
We did that, didn't we? I thought we harvested them together.
Maybe.
Yeah, so let me think of all the shit that was on there. So we harvested a bunch of mushrooms together around Indiana.
You had like that like very fluorescent like chemicals.
Yeah,
too.
so I'm a chemist and I actually had like some access to like some chemicals. So a lot of that was like chemicals from my lab that I made of like the fluorescent colored things. They were some metals complexes that I made. So we had that, and then we had some dirt, some like dirt shit. We used all kind of weird shit, like some spices, like turmeric, I think, and a lot of weird stuff. And we just got them all together one day, and then we put
it on a canvas and just kind of photographed it.
Yeah.
Pretty true to how we made it. Like, it's not like it's like an edited photo or anything.
Yeah,
I think it was like touched up a little bit just to make it look good, but that's about it.
You said that you're a chemist?
Yeah.
Is that what you went to school for?
Yeah.
What did Hubbard go to school for?
Neuroscience, and I've done kind of like neuroscience research since then.
Does James in a science degree?
He's a media guy.
Okay. And is it okay if I know how to say his last name?
Vavrick.
Okay, that's exactly how it looks. All right. Okay. I guess the only other thing I could say now would be I'm interested in why you listed Rod Serling in the back of the Uncanny Valley. I assume you guys are fans of the Twilight Zone?
Yeah. I definitely relate a lot about the Twilight Zone to like some of the vibes and ideas at Uncanny Valley. Yeah, for sure.
You just like it how it's spooky and just cosmic at points?
Yeah, it just delivers like a very specific feeling that I think resonates with Uncanny Valley, and I think the way that Rod Serling wrote as a writer was pretty terrific. I really liked his way with words. His soul was very artistic, much more so than I think the way he projected himself, honestly, too. I think he had a lot of really deep ideas in him that I felt like just needed to mention for a shout out for how much, it affected the way that shit came out.
And was the powers that be on there, was that death grips, or do you just mean that in general, the powers that be?
Kind of both. I mean, I think we extrapolated that from the reason why death grips use that, which like is something that we think we resonate with a lot in terms of like what the powers that be is to them. Like we felt like a resonating feeling with that, and we definitely resonate a lot with their work ethic and like the way they perceive their music too, for sure. I think like them and Coil and probably maybe a couple other people I can't think of, they have the same intentions with their music, that they're just following their experiences and really kind of like piecing together like these experiences and symbols and ideas and using the music as the tool to express that. I think they just had that same way about creating things.
Well, okay, I think this has been a productive and insightful interview. I want to thank you guys so much for giving me your time, and I hope that squirrel doesn't come back and freak you all out again. But
nice questions.
Thank you. I think you guys should be very proud of the stuff you guys have made.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah,
thanks, man.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, thanks. Oh, man.
Yeah, have a good night, you guys.
Yeah, you too.
See ya.
See ya.
So that was my Stabscotch interview. I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't already, I would give the band a listen, especially their album Uncanny Valley, which is some of the most interesting metal music I've heard in years. They've just come out with a new release last month. It's called Twilight Dawn. This is the limited CD release that I got, and the packaging art therein to entice you. I want to offer my deepest apologies to the band for taking so long to get this video up, but now that it is up, I hope it gives them some exposure. I've linked their Bandcamp in the description of this video, so click on that if you're interested. Anyway, I don't want to talk for too long. All I do know is that I do want to upload more content to this channel in the future. I do want to do a video exclusively on Uncanny Valley, because that is probably my favorite rock album of the 2010s. And other than that, in the meantime, be safe out there.